There is a painting hanging in the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg that no art historian has ever fully explained. It's called The Great Fire. It depicts Moscow in 1812 burning, but when you look closely, something feels wrong. The fire doesn't behave like fire. The buildings don't collapse the way buildings normally collapse. And in the background, barely visible, there is a light that is too bright, too white, too intense. It doesn't look like flame. Before we go any further, it's important to be clear. What you're about to hear is not established historical consensus. This video explores historical anomalies, eyewitness descriptions, and alternative interpretations, details that raise questions that mainstream history has not fully explained. The goal here is examination, not conclusion. That light in the painting looks eerily similar to images photographed more than a century later. Images from Hiroshima, from early nuclear tests, from thermal devastation that modern science understands very well. And yet this painting was created in 1812. That alone raises a question no textbook directly addresses. We're taught that 1812 was the year that Napoleon invaded Russia. A conventional war, muskets and cavalry, artillery, supply lines, and strategy. We're told that the Russian winter defeated Napoleon's army. 600,000 soldiers marched in. Only a fraction returned. But when historians examine the timeline closely, something doesn't fully add up. Most of Napoleon's army was already gone before winter began. By October, long before the deep freeze, his forces had nearly collapsed. Not from decisive battles, not from starvation alone, and not from the cold. So what happened?
If hidden history and forbidden evidence interest you, subscribe.
A global pattern. At the same time Napoleon marched east, cities across the northern hemisphere were burning. Moscow burned for 6 days. Eyewitnesses described a fire so intense that it appeared to create its own weather, winds strong enough to knock people off their feet. Stone structures were reported to deform, metal appeared to flow. And Moscow wasn't alone. In 1812, New York suffered catastrophic fires. Philadelphia burned, Baltimore burned, Washington, D.C. was damaged so severely the White House had to be rebuilt. All officially recorded as accidents or wartime consequences. But here's the anomaly. Russia and the United States were not at war with each other. These events occurred on opposite sides of the planet, yet unfolded within the same narrow window of time. Cities burned with similar intensity, speed, and devastation. Historians provide separate explanations for each event. But patterns don't care about borders. Survivors left behind letters and diaries, descriptions that are disturbing not because of what they saw, but because they describe phenomena they didn't have words for. A woman in Moscow wrote, "The light came first, brighter than 1,000 suns. We covered our eyes, but the light burned through our hands. Then came the wind. Then came the fire." That phrase, brighter than 1,000 suns, would not appear in scientific literature until 1945. Multiple accounts describe the same sequence. A flash, then sound, then fire. In modern physics, that order is significant. It mirrors how extreme energy events behave, where thermal radiation travels at the speed of light, arriving before shock waves and flames. In 1812, observers recorded this without understanding the mechanism. A Russian physician treating survivors described symptoms he could not explain. Severe burns without flame contact, hair falling out in clumps, skin peeling away, vomiting blood, deaths occurring days or weeks later. Modern medicine recognizes this pattern. In 1812, the doctor did not. French military reports describe something else unsettling. As Napoleon's scouts advanced, they encountered cities that were structurally intact, fully furnished, completely abandoned. Food on tables, possessions untouched. The reports referred to this as the Great Silence. That isn't a battlefield. It resembles evacuation. Across Russia, investigators later documented glass. Not decorative glass, but stone and sand fused into vitrified layers. To create glass requires temperatures above 1400 degrees Celsius. Most building fires do not exceed half that. Yet vitrified layers were found beneath multiple cities, all dated to the same period. Archaeologists refer to this cautiously as cultural discontinuity, a moment when civilization appears to stop and then restart differently. The same year, 1812, Caracas was destroyed in an event officially labeled an earthquake, yet eyewitnesses described heat, not shaking. In the Caribbean, multiple volcanic eruptions occurred nearly simultaneously. In Asia, major cities recorded catastrophic fires with similar descriptions. Different explanations. Same year. Same devastation. At some point, coincidence stops being satisfying. When enough anomalies align, history doesn't collapse. It invites re-examination. Some researchers suggest these events point to a global catastrophe more energetic than conventional warfare. Others argue the evidence is misinterpreted. What's undeniable is this: the records exist. The layers exist. The questions remain unanswered. The technology question. Across different cultures, ancient texts describe weapons of extraordinary power. Myth to some, metaphor to others. But descriptions of incandescent light, extreme heat, and instant devastation appear across cultures and centuries. What if the technology wasn't new? What if it was forgotten? What if 1812 wasn't just a year of war, but a year of transition? A moment when the world changed so dramatically that rebuilding required forgetting. Simpler architecture, lost techniques, a reset not recorded as such. Not because of malice, but because survivors rarely understand the full scope of catastrophe. What happened in 1812 may never be fully understood, but the scorch marks remain, the glass layers remain, the eyewitness accounts remain. And when enough unanswered questions point in the same direction, history isn't rewritten, it's re-examined. If even a fraction of this evidence reflects something we don't yet understand, then 1812 wasn't just a year of war. It was a moment the world changed, and we're still living in its shadow.
If hidden history and forbidden evidence interest you, subscribe. Every video here uncovers what textbooks left out.